Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we are diving deep into something called candlestick psychology. Basically, we're going to learn how to actually read the hidden story of human emotion, all that fear and greed that's playing out in real time on every single price chart you look at.
So, let me just ask you this. What if every chart you saw wasn't just a bunch of random lines and bars, but was actually a vivid story? A play-by-play of a huge battle between buyers and sellers, all of it driven by raw human emotion. Because, well, that's exactly what they are.
All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll uncover the hidden story inside the chart. Then, we'll look at the anatomy of the battle itself. After that, we'll get into decoding the market's emotions, and then, super important, why context is everything. And finally, we'll put it all together so you can trade with a bit more intelligence. Okay, so let's get right into it. At its absolute core, every chart is telling a story of a battle. It's this constant tug of war between two forces. You've got the buyers, we call them the bulls, who are trying to push the price up. And you've got the sellers, the bears, who are trying to shove it right back down.
And that right there brings us to our key idea, candlestick psychology. This is really just the study of how those human emotions, we're talking pure fear and pure greed, get visualized in the price action on a chart. This isn't just about numbers on a screen. We're talking about decoding actual human behavior.
So, to really get the story of this battle, you first have to understand the soldiers, right? The weapons they're using. And each candlestick represents a single period in that fight, and every single one gives us 4 crucial pieces of intel.
These are the 4 bits of data you need to know. The open, that's the starting gun for the battle in that time period. The high and the low show you the absolute furthest point that each side managed to push to. And the close, well, that's the final score. It tells you who was in charge when the bell rang.
Now those 4 points come together to form the 2 main parts of any candle. You've got the body, which is the thick, colored part. That represents the main event, the real substance of the fight. And then you have the wicks, those thin little lines. Think of them as the story of failed attacks and dramatic rejections.
Okay, so once you get the basic anatomy down, this is where the magic happens. You can start to decode the emotions. This is how you learn to read who's winning, who's losing, and maybe even who's about to panic. So look at these two side by side. On the left, you've got your classic green bullish candle. This is when the price closes higher than it opened. It tells you buyers are in control, confidence is growing, and a big body means they won big. Then on the right, you've got the red bearish candle. The price closed lower. That means sellers are in the driver's seat, usually fueled by fear or just people taking their profits.
You know, the wicks, they tell some of the most dramatic stories on the whole chart. A long upper wick means the buyers made a heroic charge, pushed the price way up, but then the sellers fought back like crazy and drove it all the way back down. It's a clear story of rejection. And the opposite is true for a long lower wick. It shows sellers tried to crash the price, but buyers stepped in and said, nope, not today. And when these pieces, the body, the wicks, come together in certain ways, they form these classic characters on the battlefield. A doji, with his tiny little body, basically screams indecision. Neither side could get an edge. A hammer, with that long wick at the bottom, shows that sellers tried to dump the price, but buyers hammered it right back up. That's a powerful bullish signal. And its evil twin is the shooting star, a big bearish rejection from the top.
All right, now listen up, because this might be the single most important thing you take away from all of this. A single candle, one little battle, does not tell you who is going to win the war. To get its real meaning, you absolutely have to look at the bigger picture, the surrounding terrain.
And this quote just hits the nail on the head. A hammer pattern showing up randomly in the middle of a chart, it means pretty much nothing. But that exact same hammer showing up at a key support level after massive sell-off, whoa, now that is an incredibly powerful signal that the tide might be about to turn. See, it's all about where it happens. Location is everything.
So how do you actually do that? How do you add context? Well, it's a pretty simple 3-step checklist. First, what's the overall market trend? Are we in an uptrend or a downtrend? Second, where are your key support and resistance levels, those historical battle lines? And third, check the volume. A huge battle with a ton of volume means a lot more than a tiny skirmish nobody showed up for.
Okay, a really quick but super important note here. Especially for anyone trading in those more wild markets like on DEXs or with meme tokens, the psychology is the same, but you gotta be extra careful. In those low liquidity spots, those long wicks might just be engineered liquidity sweeps.
And a giant candle could be caused by just a tiny bit of money. So what's the lesson? Patience and waiting for confirmation. They are your two best friends in these markets. All right, let's bring it all home. We've taken apart the battle, we've decoded the emotions, and we get just how important context is. Now let's boil all of this down into some clear rules for making smarter decisions.
So here's what you need to burn into your brain. Every single candle is a battle between fear and greed. A big body shows conviction from the winners. A long wick shows a powerful rejection from the losers. But most importantly, always analyze candles in context. And that leads to the golden rule. Never, ever trade based on one candle alone. Always look for confirmation.
So there you have it. You now have the tools to look at any chart and see beyond the colors and lines, to actually read the emotional story that's playing out. The real question now is, with this new insight, what are you going to do? What will your next chapter be?